Good morning. My name is Jacob Booth, and I am the Weird Christian Dude. Today we're going to be going over Genesis chapter 4. And Adam knew Eve, his wife, and she conceived and bare Cain, and said, I have gotten a man from the Lord. And she again bare his brother Abel, and Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. So here we have the first children, sons, and their jobs. Shepherd is now a thing that's in the Bible. Pretty much the beginning culture was agricultural, that you need food. That's how things worked. Verse 3, and in the process of time it came to pass that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground an offering unto the Lord. And Abel he also brought of the firstlings of the flock and the fat thereof. And the Lord had respect unto Abel and unto his offering, but unto Cain and unto his offering he had not respect. And Cain was very wroth, and his countenance fell. So this is the first type of sacrifice and offering to God, which it doesn't say there was a command to, they just did it. And later that becomes a theme in the Old Testament and sacrifices and offerings, and there's a lot of symbolism in there also. But Cain didn't do a very good job, apparently, and he was wroth. So wrath means provoked to anger, which is a little bit different than wrath, because wrath is the action that comes from anger. So it's very close. But that's what he was very angry that God didn't like his gift. Uh, and the Lord said unto Cain, Why art thou wroth? And why hast thou countenance fell? If thou doest well, shall thou not be accepted? And if thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door, and unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him. So there's kind of a lot to unpack in that very short statement, because God tells him it's not the fact that it's Cain gave grains versus Abel's meat offering, because God accepts both in his offerings. They're both very in there, but he speaks more towards the intent and the quality of things that Cain did, because God always expects the best, the first fruits, because ultimately everything came from God in the first place. So that's how he wants to do this. Yeah, it talks a little bit about rulership, and I guess that could be also used metaphorically, sin ruling in our life. Firstborns almost always end up ruling, except in a few cases where God has the younger rule over the older, like Jacob and Esau. Uh, Verse 8, and Cain talked with Abel his brother, and it came to pass that when they were in the field, that Cain rose up against Abel his brother and slew him. So this is always touted as the first murder, because that's kind of what happens. However, the details aren't in there, because it says that Cain talked with Abel. So apparently I would sort of imply that this event was what they're talking about, and didn't go very well. So it's also sort of spun that there's Abel is the poor victim, but that's not necessarily true. Brothers can definitely antagonize each other and do things that they shouldn't do in relationships, which is interesting. This comes up because I just posted a video of questions and answers from someone that sent me a letter. Her name is Diane, And this was a subject of how to deal with neighbors and brotherly disputes. Continuing on. And the Lord said unto Cain, where is Abel thy brother? And he said, I know not. Am I my brother's keeper? Whew. And it's the balls on that guy. Talk to God that way. But verse 11. And now art thou cursed. Verse 10. And he said, what hast thou done? The voice of thy brother's blood crieth unto me from the ground. And now art thou cursed from the earth, which hath opened her womb to receive thy brother's blood from thy hand. When thou tillest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee her strength. A fugitive and a vagabond shalt thou be in the earth. So, God cursed Cain for killing his brother. And exiled him from basically everything because he can no longer do his job. He was a farmer, and he said, well, stuff's not going to grow. No matter where you farm, it's not going to happen. So I should look at the word vagabond, but basically it means a traveler that has no place to live. My understanding. And verse 13, and Cain said unto the Lord, my punishment is greater than I can bear. Behold, thou hast driven me out this day from the face of the earth, and from thy face shall I be hid, and I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth, and it shall come to pass that every one that findeth me shall slay me. So he's very concerned about people taking revenge on him for Cain's death, which is understandable. Verse 15, and the Lord said unto him, therefore whosoever slayeth Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. And the Lord set a mark upon Cain, lest any finding him should kill him. So I'm not sure how God would take sevenfold punishments on killing somebody, but he could do that. So this mark of Cain is talked about, and it's usually negatively viewed, but God actually put it there as protection. That's so that also to help people understand that God's judgment is final, because he didn't tell them to go and kill him, and he doesn't want people overriding what his commands are. So it also establishes some perspective for the rest of existence to not rebel against what God said, because that always works badly. And verse 16, and Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelt in the land of Nod on the east of Eden. So keep going east. And Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bare Enoch, and he builded a city and called the name of the city after the name of his son Enoch. So this is interesting. So firstly, people have answered or asked in sort of a antagonistic way, who is Cain's wife? And the answer is, it obviously has to be one of his relatives, since everyone came from Eve. And ultimately, the answer would be, since he's first generation, one of his sisters or someone else had that, and then it would be a niece. But at the time, that was fine. The law didn't come into existence yet, and obviously, if everyone comes from two people, those are the only options, right? So logically, that Cain's wife had to be his sister. However, later on, that is not acceptable, and actually, in Deuteronomy 27, with the curses of Mount Ebal, that is one of the things that God curses people for in all types of bad ways. To don't do that. Emphasizes certain behaviors are not acceptable. Okay. I also wanted to note that he built a city. So this, it's not a short period of time, but they're also not, what's it called? They're not Neanderthals. It's not a Stone Age thing. They started right away with gardening and farming and building cities. So that's pretty cool. Verse 18. And unto Enoch was born Irad, and Irad begot Me- Mehujal. Names are hard. And Mehujal begot Methusael, and Methusael begot Lamech. That's quite a few generations. I mean, cities aren't built in a day, so. And Lamech took unto him 2 wives, and the names of the one was Ada, and the name of the other Zillah. So this is the first multi-wife relationship that's noted, and that actually happens more later. But God never speaks against this particular case, though that doesn't mean it's okay. It is, though. And is important enough to put in here that the women are named. Like, he didn't just say he had 2 wives, he says specifically who they are. So they must have had some type of significance, in my opinion. And if they didn't, God makes them significant. Alright. Verse 20. And Ada bare Jabal. He was the father of such that dwell in tents, and of such as have cattle. And his brother's name was Jubal. They're very close. There's one letter different. To try figuring that one out as a parent, like, who are you yelling at right now? Sorry. And he was the father of such as handle the harp and organ. So harp and organ are complicated musical instruments. God made people intelligent from the beginning and to set up civilization from the beginning. There's not a stone age and evolution of people that are super primitive. He has a harp and an organ, and it's like 5 generations in. So, verse 22, and Zillah also bare a son. She also bare Tubal Cain, an instructor in every artificer in brass and iron. And the sister of Tubal Cain was Nama. So his sister's got named in there too, so that's pretty cool. And they're working brass and iron early on in civilization. Brass, iron, cities, harps. Like, it's counter to what a lot of people perceive ancient cultures as. Verse 23, and Lamech said unto his wives, Ada and Zillah, hear my voice, ye wives of Lamech. Hearken unto my speech, for I have slain a man to my wounding, and a young man to my hurt. If Cain shall be avenged sevenfold, truly Lamech 70 and sevenfold. So that's the second death. However, the way this is talked about, it seems more like a self-defense case than anything. The way he says "to my hurt and to my wounding" sort of implies that it's both emotional and physical hurt, and that sort of changes the situation. Like, he understands the severity, but and is basically voicing God's protection, because he's like, it's in my view, that's more of a proclamation of innocence, or at least intent, than anything else. Verse 25. And Adam knew his wife again, and she bare a son, and called his name Seth. For God, said she, hath appointed me another seed instead of Abel, whom Cain slew. And to Seth and to him that was there born a son, and he called his name Enos. Then began men to call upon the name of the Lord. So, yeah, this is tragic to have 2 sons, and then one's dead, the other one's a fugitive forever. So Eve got a 3rd son, and got to continue, obviously, the humanity. And it says, and people, and then began men to call upon the name of the Lord. So that's significant because of God is being called back into people's lives to be in charge. Uh, Not sure how much he was involved in between the punishment of Cain and now, but it's important that people then want him in their lives. And the name of the Lord is actually something that was also in the Q&A number 1 with my letter from Diane, uh, which is interesting how this fit in there perfectly. God does things that way. Uh, yeah. So if you have any insight or questions, you let me know. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful evening, and you are always welcome to come and talk to me.